Hello, welcome back. Today I am continuing my shelf tour of my unread fiction books, and the whole purpose of this tour is to take the books down off the shelf, look at them, see what I have, remind myself of what I have, and perhaps find some books that I want to read very soon. And it also gives you an opportunity to see what's on my shelves, and if you have read these books, to give me some suggestions, recommendations. Uh, if you've enjoyed these books, if you haven't enjoyed these books, I'd really love to hear about it. So we're just going to get right at it. I think that I have put these into a different order than they were on the shelf, but I don't suppose that matters. So the first book is Mosquito Coast by Paul Theroux. And I have seen this movie. It starred River Phoenix and Harrison Ford. I feel like the movie is probably different from the book, but that's okay because I think I saw the movie about 20 years ago. There is Paul Theroux on the back. It is about a man, he's an inventor, and he takes his family down to the Amazon, I think, and buys like an ice factory. I don't know if that's exactly what happens in the book. I'll be interested to see. I have most of Paul Theroux's nonfiction, and I've read several of his nonfiction books, his travelogues and that sort of thing, but I have never read any fiction that he wrote, and I think that's just because I'm not interested in most of it. Now, if I remember right, he wrote a book called Ozone, which always seemed interesting to me, but probably is still not the kind of book that I would pick up if left to my own devices. I see it kind of frequently. Now I'm going to be questioning if that was the actual title of it. Now the next is a book that I have been wanting to read for quite some time, and that I almost picked up and read just a couple days ago, and I think that I may be reading this soon. This is Airport by Arthur Hailey, and there is Arthur Hailey on the back. He wrote these big dramas in the 60s and 70s, and he would pick a subject like a hospital or a hotel or an airport and write about all the lives of the people, the major characters in these airports and hotels and things like that, and talk about the behind the scenes stuff. And there's always a bunch of like drama and relationship stuff, and not particularly my cup of tea, to be honest, but I've always wanted to read Airport. And so I found this. I think I got this last year, but I think that I may read this soon because I like to read books like this in the summer for some reason. And I think that was this the inspiration for was like Airport 75 with Karen Black? I've always wanted to see that. I don't know if that was influenced by this, but we will find out. I'll look that up in a little while. Uh, the next is by Umberto Eco. It is Foucault's Pendulum, and you'll have to forgive my French. It is absolutely abysmal, so if I mispronounce that, that's on me. I read his book In the Name of the Rose. I really, I really like that book actually quite a bit. I don't read Latin though, and so the 60 or so pages that were in Latin, or that's how I recall it, and this was before I knew about like Google Translate. And I'm not even sure if Google Translate will translate Latin. I'll have to look that up. Uh, anyway, that kind of threw me, and I really had a hard time following the motives of the bad guy, and that was a very strange book that I don't really know anything about theology, Christian theology, so a good deal of it was lost on me. And I don't know, I just this is kind of like a difficult book, right? I've heard that this is a very difficult book. And after that, we have the collected stories of Isaac Bashevis Singer, Bashevis. I'm not entirely sure how you would pronounce his name. I have actually watched a really interesting documentary about him that was created by, I think, David Hoffman, who has a YouTube channel. It's a wonderful channel. He was a documentarian. He still is. He has a YouTube channel where he posts all of the films that he made over the years, starting in the 50s, I believe. It's a very nice channel, very interesting. And he followed Isaac Bashevis Singer around for a couple of days to the places that had been very important to him in New York City when he was a young writer. very good. And if I remember, I will post a link to that. It's really interesting. But these are his collected stories, and if I remember right, he wrote in Yiddish, so all of his stories are translated into English. And I have read a few of these, and I really enjoyed the ones that I read. I think I just got sidetracked. But short story summer is coming up, so maybe I will get to some of those. The next two are by an author I have not read yet, though I have several of his books, including his memoir of being an officer in the First World War and The Long Weekend. That is Robert Graves' I, Claudius and Claudius the God. And these are novels about Claudius, who became the Emperor of Rome. And I have been meaning to read these for quite some time, but I just haven't got around to them yet. Now, the next book was the inspiration for a Steve McQueen movie, The Sand Pebbles. And this is about an American gunship that is in China around the time of, I'm not entirely sure what was going on, maybe the Chinese Revolution. So it says right here on the back, it says that the author served for 10 years in the Far East, 2 of them on a Yangtze River gunboat. During this time, he heard many first-hand accounts of the 1925 to 1927 Chinese Revolution, which he has put to use in The Sand Pebbles. And there he is on the back. And I think this is another one of those books, kind of like the Arthur Hailey book, a big over-the-top drama. I don't know. And I do enjoy those books very much when I read them, but I just finding the moment when I actually want to read them, I never know when it's coming, and I just pick up the book and start reading. So hopefully I will really enjoy this. And I think that probably is one of the reasons that I have so many books, is because of that reason, the way that I read, right? Is that I don't have a set list or anything like that. I have a lot of different interests, and I bounce from one to another, and I never know what is going to hook me in the moment. So it is a thing where if I only have a few books, I may not be interested in any of them. Whereas if I have a lot of books, I usually can find something to read. After that, we have 2 books by Chaim Potok, who wrote The Chosen, if I remember right. The Chosen, and let me look. I liked that book quite a lot. In fact, it was one of the best books that I read in that year that I read it. The Chosen. My Name is Asher Lev. I never read that, but I did read In the Beginning. So this is Davita's Harp, and he was a Jewish writer, I think from New York City. And I've really enjoyed everything of his that I have read. I didn't care for In the Beginning so much, but that was more because of the way that the story worked out in the end. And it was kind of about a young man who grows up in New York City. He's Jewish, and his father had been a freedom fighter in Europe, and they had been forced out of Europe. And I just didn't like the end where, well, I won't ruin that book, but I just felt like it was kind of a very negative ending. The next is The Book of Lights, and I don't know. Like I said, I have enjoyed the books of his that I have read, so I need to get to reading them. That is the story of my life. I need to get to reading them. So the next book is The Eagle Has Landed by Jack Higgins. This was made into a movie in the 70s, and I watched that several years ago. I barely remember it. It's about a Nazi commando team led by a member of the IRA who they are going to kill Winston Churchill. And all I remember from the movie is like Donald Sutherland is in it, and I can't remember who else is in that movie. It's been quite some time. I haven't read a book by Jack Higgins yet. He wrote these big thrillers, these big like spy thrillers and action thrillers and that sort of thing. And did I already show him? There he is on the back there. He kind of looks like Tom Clancy, except for like a cooler version of Tom Clancy, right? Let's see. He would probably resent that. Here is Frederick Forsyth's The Dogs of War. And there is Frederick Forsyth there on the back, who was, in real life, he got up to quite a bit on his own as far as thrillers and spies and that sort of stuff went. And this also was made into a movie with Christopher Walken. I really, really like that movie, actually. It is about a group of mercenaries who are brought down to this country in Africa to to start a regime change, and the mercenaries, one in particular, the head mercenary, decides that he is not all right with that in the end. And it's a really good movie, actually. I've been meaning to read this. I know. I keep saying I've been meaning to read this, but I mean, these books are not short, and my interest goes all over the place, right? I have interest in all sorts of things, and I just never know what I'm going to want to read at the moment. The next is rather an uninteresting book to look at, and unfortunately, I think all these books we're about to show have no covers or anything like that. This is The Captain by Jean de Haartog. I'm not entirely sure how you pronounce his name. This is about I'm not entirely sure if it was like a merchant ship or a liberty ship during World War II and the people serving on that ship. And this is supposed to be an extremely good book, especially in that genre. After that, we have one. This is by Fletcher Knebel and Charles Bailey. And what was that book? I've read something by Fletcher Knebel before, but I don't remember what it was. He was one of those big writers of the 50s and 60s. I'm not sure if he lived into the 70s, but it is 7 Days in May. And this was turned into a movie, I believe, with Kirk Douglas. And, oh, geez, there's an actor whose name I always forget. I always want to say his name was Douglas Fairbanks Jr., but it was not Douglas Fairbanks Jr. And in fact, Kirk Douglas and the other actor would wind up being in a movie together years later, which, what was that one called? I can't remember. It had Dana Carvey in it, and they were two gangsters who had robbed a train, went to prison for something like 30 or 40 years. They got out, they're old men, and now they want to rob that train again because they don't really fit into society. What was that actor's name? I can see his face. I will write it all right here. After that, we have a really nice edition from the 30s. This is King Arthur and His Knights. And I got this, I know I've got this since I've had my channel. This is really neat. It is an illustrated edition of the Arthur legend. And I had a book very much like this. I had like a reprint of this when I was much younger, but I never got around to reading it. And I got this with the hopes that I would actually read it. But just a lot of books have gotten in the way since I got it. And it's really pretty. Now, I know that this book originally was published with a really nice cover, but it is missing, unfortunately. And the last two are both by Kenneth Roberts, who wrote big historical novels about the American Revolution in that time frame. And I have only read one of his books so far. I cannot remember the name of it off the top of my head, but it was about a ship that crashes on this little tiny island of rocks during the winter, and they all have to survive, and they resort to cannibalism in the end. I really enjoyed that book, although he was really, really gung-ho about America and how awesome America was. This was set in the 1700s, I believe, early 1700s. So we have Rabble in arms, and this is about colonists during the American Revolution, and I think it's about a young man who goes to war with Benedict Arnold while he was still fighting for the colonial army. And then we have one about loyalists to the British Empire, which is Oliver Wiswell. And they all have these really neat maps in the front, I think also in the back. Anyway, I know that I will enjoy these, but I really rarely read historical fiction of this nature. I don't know why that is. It's just something that I tend to be kind of timid about reading, even though I've heard such good things about these books. Let's see, here's another map. I think you can even see, you might even kind of be able to see where I live, which is right over in here somewhere. Anyway, that is it. That is the shelf. I think that is the, you might notice, if you notice that sort of thing, I had a radio there, but I moved it. I'm always moving it around because in this room, I don't really have an ideal place to put it based on where I sit, and I usually sit on this couch right here. But like, I don't know why I'm even talking about this. I just moved it, so it's on my mind. I don't hear particularly well out of this ear, and not like really badly or anything, but I hear much better out of this ear. I can kind of make out voices much better. So in this room, it's not ideal because I always sit with my right ear facing the wall just about. So I'm always searching for a better place for my radio, and I think it's actually going to go right back where it was. But you're not interested in my radio, and that's perfectly fine. I just want to thank you for watching. And if you have read any of these books, if you have any of these books, if you've read them and you liked them, you read them and you didn't like them, I'd love to hear about it. And I want to thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time. I seemed awfully upbeat in that one, I think.